Face Your Inner Nerd. I'm your host, Brandon.
And I'm your host, Aaron.
If you're new here, or haven't been here in a while or whatever, we are a nerdy podcast where we talk about all things nerd, ranging from comic books, movies, all kind of nerdy topics. We've been trying... We've been kind of slacking on some of the more fun topics, and we've kind of just been talking about nerd news.
Well, sort of. I mean, that kind of plays into where we've been. I mean, aside from the fact that, like, personal life has kind of just really driven us away from the podcast for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I've just not been in a very good mood lately.
I feel it.
But that's personal reasons. But also Summer Game Fest kind of came out of, not that it came out of nowhere, but it really just came in swinging.
Yeah.
And so we were really staying in tune with everything that's going on in, like, the gaming world right now.
As far as gaming goes, this year was kind of a weird wave of, like, mixed reviews or, like, mixed feelings, because, like, there's a good amount of stuff and there's also a good amount of bad stuff.
It's very reactionary.
Yeah.
It's definitely a year of, like, reacting to what the news is exactly.
Right.
Like, there is a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
There's some questionable stuff, and then there's some, I wouldn't say there's bad stuff in the world of gaming right now, but there's, like, uninteresting things in the world.
Yeah.
Of gaming. There was a lot of, especially PlayStation's first State of Play, because their second one will be in July, was just really not interesting.
Yeah.
With the exception of, like, a teaser to what they're going to show of Ghost of Yotai at the next State of Play.
Which is so weird.
I know.
Like, as if they haven't shown us enough already.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of stuff to talk about. I mean, for anyone who is listening or happens to listen to this on Spotify, we've been gone even longer for you guys, I guess. But we did post a live reaction of the Summer Game Fests at the Game Awards. Not that we were at the Game Awards, but the actual Summer Game Fest showcase.
Yeah.
That the Game Awards throws last week.
Yeah.
So, but that's on YouTube. So you could always watch, or I don't think you'd want to listen to it because you'd mainly just be listening to the showcase. But
you could probably listen to the second half of it, like when we started talking about.
Yeah, we did kind of have, like, a rundown of the whole thing.
But yeah, and, like, then it came to, like, the Xbox showcase, which was extremely... Oh, I wouldn't say it's extremely underwhelming. I was underwhelmed, but there were a couple things where I was like, oh, that's cool.
I thought oh, well, I was going to say I thought the Xbox was the best one so far, but I think in general the summer game... see, that's tough, because I think Summer Game Fest had the most reactions.
Yeah.
Like, there was games like Ill, which is probably, like, a game that's been circulating in conversation a lot.
Right.
Which we're both really excited for. But Xbox had the most surprises, I'd say, because they had a lot of very original stuff.
Yeah.
Which Xbox is pretty known for. They're pretty known for showcasing, like, their indie developers and stuff that they have under their umbrella.
A lot of people had the exact same reaction as you did when it came to the end of the Xbox showcase. Because I've seen videos back to back of people watching that part going, Halo, Halo, Halo. And I can't tell you how many times I heard the word Halo in the matter of 30 minutes of watching everyone having the same reaction.
Yeah.
And then at first they see the first portion of the trailer and they're like, what is this? One person said, is this Alan Wake? Mm-hmm. And then as soon as someone saw there's like a map where there's a lot of, like, containers.
Yeah.
In this game, it was covered in like weird like branches and vines and stuff.
Right.
But they saw that and they're like, "Is this Black Ops?"
So it's funny. So on my channel, I did a live stream of kind of like a rundown of the Xbox showcase.
Right.
And as I got to this part, I even said there was a part where I was streaming and I looked at my phone and I saw that Hidden Xperia, who's like a Halo channel.
Yeah.
I saw that he had posted something because he was also streaming like during the showcase.
Right.
And I was like, I bet you he's gonna have he's gonna say the exact same thing I did.
Yeah.
And he did. I watched his video and he said what I did word for word. That Phil Spencer comes out at the end and he's talking about how next year is gonna be 25 years of Xbox.
Yeah.
And so they're excited to talk about like a new Fable story. They're Gears of War E-Day, Ninja Gaiden that's been with them for all this time.
Yeah.
And he said like word for word, another beloved IP that's been with us since the beginning of Xbox.
Halo.
Right. And then he's like, but before you go, we've got one more surprise for you guys. And then it's like you described it. At first, it's this crazy, like it's this tour. I'm not going to lie. Once I realized it was Black Ops, the robot looked really familiar. It looks,
Yeah.
I explained this to you earlier. That robot looks identical to the robots that are in Infinite Warfare.
Right. Like this game could rather one be leading into that
Yeah.
world or it could be like around that same era.
Yeah, this kind of looks like the game that if it's plausible that it's like the segue into Infinite Warfare.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so at first it's like this, this fancy little tour thing about the guild, I think is what the company or organization was called. And then there's like this little butterfly that takes him to a panel like glass or mirror or something. And then it like warps into this weird Inception looking nightmare place. And I was like, if this is like some new linear psychological horror thriller type game that Xbox is doing, that would be sick as shit. And then he says Menendez, and I was like, fuck, this is Black Ops.
Yeah.
And then you see the orange and blue streaks and he's holding the gun. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, and they tried doing like what they did before where they would replicate the first Black Ops cover, but instead now they're replicating Black Ops 2. The cover of Black Ops 2?
I don't know.
Because the cover of Black Ops 2, he had one pistol covering his face.
Oh.
So that's
Gotcha.
yeah. Which is it's dumb, but I mean, yeah, if you guys want to look more into that, again, Aaron live streamed it. You can go look at the YouTube
Well,
episode.
I streamed after, but I did a whole rundown.
Oh, sorry.
of-
You live streamed the Summerfest one.
The Summer
but
Game
you did
Fest, yeah.
the aftermath reaction,
Right.
if you could say, for the Xbox showcase.
Right.
But today we actually have somewhat of like a theme to this episode, because it's very difficult to try to have a unique premise for each episode, but we're trying to get back into something more structured. But Aaron, today we're gonna get controversial.
Controversial.
Yeah, get butted.
So you had this idea of an episode about getting controversial and having like a list of topics about like controversial opinions.
Yeah,
So I do want to be, only because of my list,
yeah.
I want to be clear.
Okay.
I have a list of things. Some of them are things that I do believe,
Yeah,
and I'm going to say them jokingly,
yeah.
and some things that I don't believe. But all of it with the intent to piss people off.
You know, I only have 4. I don't have a lot.
Okay, I actually only have 4 as well, and I'm getting rid of one of them
Okay.
because it's random and stupid.
So yeah, I have 4, and the original premise was that these weren't supposed to be clarified on whether or not they are true or not, like if they're just supposed to be funny. And I'm not going to say, oh, I guess it doesn't really make a difference. But yeah, so I have 4. And if you guys, we want to hear the reactions to these, whether they're good or bad. And these might even be just things that aren't that controversial. Maybe mine are just opinions that people may or may not agree with. Who knows? I kind of wanted this to be to the point where we could like react to each other, but I don't think mine are that great. I think only one of them might trigger
I don't
you.
think, honestly, after looking back at them, they're not. I think they're too goofy.
But that's what I want. I wish I went more goofy. Mine are legit.
Well, okay. Well, I do when we get this rolling. I do want to start with one that's more of a spontaneous thing based on a conversation we just had.
Go for it.
Okay, so my first one, and again, this is kind of my spontaneous one. I think, and this isn't much of a surprise because we had an episode about this. I think the absolute Batman, especially in its current state, is ridiculously overhyped.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As a diehard Batman fan, I think I don't want to use the word sucks,
Yeah.
but it blows. Like I'm not keeping up with it at all. You kind of just gave me a rundown of the whole situation. But from first impressions, I liked the idea of a gothic horror Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of reminiscent to a weird drawing that I did when I first started drawing.
Yeah.
Not that they resemble each other, but the premise is interesting because
Yeah.
I did an idea of Mr. Freeze, but instead of it being tech, the science experiment turned him into a monster.
Right.
But the entirety of the absolute Batman isn't interesting enough for me to go into it just for the Mr. Freeze thing.
Yeah.
And then you also just explained to me how Bane exists right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's dumb.
Okay.
I don't like it. Sorry, but to wrap up the point, I think the Earth 1 series they did 10 years ago that's a better quote unquote absolute or ultimate universe for DC than the absolute.
I think they should have treated the Earth 1 line that they did
or marketed it
the same way.
Yeah.
As the absolute, basically.
Because that's what it was.
Yeah. And
because it was grounding all of these superheroes.
I think when it comes to the absolute Batman, I think on paper there's a lot of the stuff that I would have really liked, but it was how it's executed,
right?
Because I think there's a lot of material here that could work. It just has to be tweaked differently. And honestly, I hate. And I usually don't say this a lot when it comes to comic book artists because I think that there's, in a way, beauty to all comic book art.
Right.
I hate the fucking comic book artist for the absolute Batman.
I think it's just too much.
I don't like one thing about his art. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Don't. I'm not saying it's bad. I just think that
it's poor choice.
And I think it completely distracts people from certain things, and like you said, it's too much.
Yeah.
It exaggerates certain things. It's different if you have a character who is supposed to be this bigger than life human. When you have Jack Reacher, for example, in the books he's described as a mountain of a man. But there's a way to portray that realistically, like Alan Richardson, for example. And then Richardson, sorry. But then when you have the comic book Absolute Batman and they try to explain him as this hulking man, he seems too much hulking and less of man.
You know what I think it is? So I don't know. This is just speculation. I don't know who the artist is. I think they had like an in-house DC artist who was, because it's Scott Snyder, right? That's doing the series.
I think he's helping with it.
I thought his name was a part
I
of it.
think he's a co-writer. I don't think he's the main.
But anyways, whoever the artist is, whatchamacallit, I think they thought like maybe it was gonna bring something similar to like Trad Moore and like a Luther Strode type thing.
dude.
But Trad Moore, what's different about his is that his like organic wavy characters,
There's expression.
there's
to it.
it's much the style is much more honed in, and he really leans into it,
Yeah.
and it feels better.
Yeah.
Whilst like this one, it's like they're trying to go for something quote unquote grounded and like gritty, but with like a stylistic art style that it feels weird.
Yeah.
Like, but again, that's also why I kind of like the Earth One grounded art style and grounded Batman. I like the idea of like the first panel of Batman. He's like trying to clear like a leap between two buildings, and he like falls,
yeah.
and he's like, damn. And then at the end of the book, he's got like a new suit, and he gears up a little better, and he's had practice, and he's a better Batman.
Yeah.
But I also like how it's more of like a mobster type story, because like the Penguin is the mayor, and
it focuses a lot on like detective work, and like it really goes to like traditional like detective comics. Batman.
right. And I also like how Green Lantern is like he's an astronaut who's like stranded when he becomes the Green Lantern.
That stuff
and it
was
makes like
so
for
cool.
a really interesting looking Green Lantern too, because he's like,
It's almost like as if they forgot that Earth One was a thing,
right.
and they're like, "Oh, let's make this absolute universe." It's like, you guys,
You did that already. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's things that I like about the Absolute Superman, and I really like the Absolute Wonder Woman.
She's definitely the best thing out of the whole thing.
But like, okay, let's just time travel and put that Wonder Woman in Earth One.
But even the Earth One Wonder Woman was pretty good.
She was pretty cool too.
And I really liked especially like her on the front, that first cover.
Yeah.
Of how she's like really big and muscular, and she kind of like towers over everyone.
And that's what I mentioned with the Absolute Wonder Woman is I like the idea of characters who visually represent what they're supposed to be. Like Wonder Woman is supposed to be like this powerhouse of a woman.
Right.
And not only does the Absolute Wonder Woman look that way, but so does the Earth One Wonder Woman. And I wish they would do that more with certain characters. But it's question. I'm not trying to like step on toes. Was that it? Or
I mean, that was the premise of that.
It's funny that you bring that up as your first, because my first controversial opinion is on Batman. Now that I'm like getting to the point where I'm going to say it out loud, I feel like it might be as controversial as I wanted it to be. I don't think Batman should be in the Justice League.
What? Hey, Brandon. Batman is the Justice League.
Yeah. So, okay, I feel like my reason makes sense.
Is it just because he's like a guy?
No, because like Mr. Terrific is just a guy.
Right.
But Mr. Terrific is the part of the Justice League that I think should be filled where like Batman is. Okay, just let me explain. So Batman is really well known for like, because you have like the Batman comics and you have the Detective Comics Batman comics. And the main difference is like everything that happens in the Batman stories is like everything Batman. You know, it's like a lot of the major continuity moments, and it's everything that's like, if you want to know everything there is to know about Batman, the main Batman line. And then you have the Detective Comics, which could be Black Label or they could be main continuity, but they really hone in on more grounded detective work. And even if it does have like supervillain type status stuff, it's still like very honed in on a very well written story that's not just like explosions and fighting. There's like well thought into it. And I think a lot of this gets ruined by the fact that Batman's in the Justice League. Don't get me wrong, Batman leading up until now, there's nothing you can do about it because like it's been a thing and it's been stated that Batman helps like fund things that happen with the Justice League and everything. And
whoa, wait a minute. Sorry, Brandon, you just figured it out. Okay, so remember, sorry, I'm totally interrupting you.
yeah, you are.
So remember way back when how I described how Batman should be introduced in the new DCU?
Yeah.
And I said like he should be more of like a shadowy figure that's always in like the background and he's just as mysterious to the other characters as he is to us.
Yeah.
So what if, because they've implied, I forgot where I saw this. It's been implied that because people have been kind of calling Mr. Terrific, Hawk Girl, and Guy Gardner the Justice Gang or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're but somewhere it's been implied that that's not what they're actually called. I don't know if it was like a toy set that got released or something.
Okay.
But what if they're kind of like the groundwork for the Justice League? Superman ends up being a part of that. And then Wonder Woman, who they just confirmed is like the next big thing that they're trying to work into the DCU.
Okay.
So they kind of get that going. Maybe like they do my thing where Batman is like this shadowy figure that's kind of like someone that they've mentioned before, or maybe we've seen in the background, or like other characters communicating with in some way, shape, or form. And Mr. Terrific is kind of like the leader, quote unquote, of the Justice League.
Okay.
For all the reasons that you're like kind of describing.
Right.
And maybe there's like this moment in a movie that's like Justice League-esque or building up to a Justice League movie. So kind of like the difference between like a Captain America Civil War and an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and maybe Mr. Terrific dies or something just happens to him, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, for whatever reason, they're like, we kind of, it falls apart without him. And like maybe they're talking about disbanding the Justice League or something like that. And someone suggests, well, I do know a guy. And they're like, who? And then maybe this is like a post-credit scene or something. And then there's this moment while they're like talking about it. And while they're talking about it, we finally see up close like these big, heavy leather boots like stomping through the watchtower or something. And then we finally see the cape. And then all of a sudden he's like in silhouette and Superman's like, this is not a good idea. And all of a sudden we see like a close up of his face. And that's when we would see Batman for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then whenever maybe like they'll do like the Justice League will come back or something. And that's like a teaser to a Justice League movie.
Yeah.
I just got chills. Sorry, continue your controversial thing.
Yeah, so
that I don't agree with, by the way.
I figured you wouldn't, but I think that where Batman thrives is in his solo stuff. And I don't have an issue with there being like a human in the Justice League, and I think that Batman does contribute a lot to the team. Mm-hmm. But I really like older, like, or like beginning stages of Batman, like a lot of year one stuff where Batman, not only is it really grounded, like I don't mind supervillains, but I think when worked in correctly, it still holds somewhat of a grounded feel to it.
Right.
I really like the idea of people constantly questioning, is Batman more bat or is he more man? More of like a legend, really honing in on a fear factor type thing, because I know that Batman understands that there is more to being a hero than like fear, but he still uses it immensely. And there's something about him being a part of a team that really throws him into the spotlight that I think makes him vulnerable. And it immediately takes you away from that feeling. Like when you're watching like Robert Pattinson in like a Batman movie, it's like, okay, this is Batman. This is how I think Batman should be. But as soon as you put, I'm not saying he's going to be Batman in the DCU, but imagine putting Robert Pattinson in the Justice League.
Right.
It instantly takes away everything that you like about Batman. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, and that's completely fine. But I think Batman thrives solo. I think, one last thing. Another perfect example was that Batman animated series, not the one with Kevin Conroy, but the one that I really liked. The Batman.
That the one where the Joker was like, he looked more like a jester.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the perfect example, because throughout the entire show, Batman is solo, but as soon as you introduce the Justice League, a lot of what you liked about Batman kind of like gets tainted. It was really cool when Batman did team ups, and like it still applies in the comics. Like when you have Batman and the Flash or Batman and Superman or whatever,
Yeah.
it can work. But then as soon as you put him in like a full-fledged team going up against gods and monsters and all this stuff, it's like something about it is just, I don't know.
You just, okay. First off, I mean, I disagree in general,
Yeah.
because I think what Batman brings, and I guess similarly Mr. Terrific, what they bring to like a Justice League is important. That's why, like, in writing, a lot of teams tend to have like rather a genius character or a tactical character, or in Batman's case, both. But, and sure, and I do agree that he does thrive on his own.
Yeah.
Because when the story's honed in around the world that he lives in, it's interesting, and it, or it can be more compelling. But he also, when they make the Batman that's designed for the Justice League or whatever, he's a nice addition because he's got that very tongue-in-cheek kind of relationship with like Clark.
Yeah.
Where he's like the rough and tough, and Clark's kind of like the more loving, like, come on, Bruce, lighten up kind of guy.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he has a relationship with Diana that can work really well sometimes.
Right.
So it's more of like, okay, so I agree and disagree, because on the point that he thrives on his own, that's true.
Yeah.
But him being a part of the Justice League, it's like you can't have Superman in the Justice League without having Batman in the Justice League.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
I originally had a second one on Batman as well, but I felt like having two in a row on Batman felt like I was like really dissing on him, which I didn't want that to be the case, because I still like Batman.
Before you get to that really quick,
I don't know if I'm going to say it.
Oh.
I think you might agree with me, though. I think it would be less controversial, because I think a lot of people might have the same opinion, but I don't know. Okay,
well, before you get to that, though, you said Gods and Monsters. I don't know if you saw it, but James Gunn confirmed that they're in, like, you know how Marvel has, like, phases?
Yeah.
They're in Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters.
Gotcha.
Which I think is really interesting, because we have, like, Superman and Supergirl, and then we're also going to have Clayface, and so he's, like, the monster, and we also have the Creature Commandos.
Oh, did you hear about who may possibly be casted as Clayface?
I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but I did see who the runner-ups were, and the guy that they're leaning towards is the guy who was just the Irishman
In Sinners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great choice.
Yeah.
I think he'd kill it.
I got confused on whether or not it was supposed to be for the Robert Pattinson Clayface or
No,
the
it's the one that Mike Flanagan's writing.
Okay. But will Clayface still be played by or like voiced by
Alan Tudyk?
Yeah,
No.
which is weird.
Cuz
Cuz yeah,
I mean it's not it's
that's
not
why I brought it up is cuz I was under the impression that the casting was referring to who's going to play Clayface in the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Well, I think if anything Alan Tudyk was more of like a placeholder.
Yeah.
And hell, we could be wrong. It could be, or I could be wrong. It could be the Robert Pattinson one, but I'm pretty sure that they're talking about the Mike Flanagan one.
It probably is.
Because the Mike Flanagan movie, I forgot who's directing that movie. But that movie was greenlit recently, but prior to where it seemed like Matt Reeves even came to a conclusion on the Batman Part 2.
Right.
So I'm assuming that's what they're referring to. And I'm pretty sure when I saw it, it said the Clayface movie.
You're probably right. I don't know. It's really hard to say this early on, but
yeah, and then also he just said that they're talking about how it's confirmed that they're trying to write Wonder Woman right now.
right.
And write her into the... Anyways.
What's your next
My next thing... Hold up. Okay. The Black Panther game by EA has been canceled. And you know what? I can't even finish it. The way I have it written here is that the Black Panther game by EA was canceled, and that's a good thing. But it's not a good thing because when I wrote this, I didn't know that the studio is also closing down. So
first off, especially the way you worded it, I'm like, that's not a controversial opinion. That's just news.
Well, yeah, because I was gonna really try to piss people off with that one, but when it comes to like another game studio closing, like it's more heartbreaking, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do that one. I could go to my next one that might be a lot more controversial, but
I forgot there was a Black Panther game. I thought EA was making an Iron Man game.
they are. Motive, the guys who made the Dead Space remake.
Right.
The Black Panther game. Yeah.
Huh.
And I even think that, I could be wrong, but I even think the Wonder Woman game not only got canceled, but I think that studio is shutting down too.
Rough.
But I know for sure the Black Panther game is like she's done for.
Yeah, let's maybe skip that because that's getting more into like nerd news stuff.
Yeah. The Elden Ring Night Rain is now a roguelike, death to Souls-like genre.
Okay.
Fuck them.
Your controversial opinions just sound like statements. Like,
No, I'm saying death to Souls-like genre.
oh,
Fuck them.
like you don't like Souls like?
Fuck them.
I don't disagree with you. Here's my issue with it. Because I understand wanting a challenge. Like, some people really like that. But maybe this is just the old man in me. But when I rather have a weekend to myself, or, I'm coming home from work and I have time to play video games, the last thing I want to be is frustrated and like irritated to the point where I'm going to throw my controller at the TV. Making a game that's so difficult with no possibility of adjustment and like your only way to really progress is farming. Rune farming? Is that what they call it? It's referred to different things in different games, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to like find ways to get more points to upgrade, but that means going like backtracking and going out of your way to do things you don't want to do in order to progress in the game, when all you really want to do is just kind of like make your way through. Sure. And like if it's a free roaming game you want, or it's a sandbox game, there are so many other games you could play that are not Souls like where you could do that. And if you want a challenge, raise the difficulty. Maybe play it a couple times, get comfortable with it, and raise the difficulty. Don't play a game that you can't change the difficulty on.
Because I agree. Like I even find this issue in like my day-to-day life. I even find this issue when we watch a movie with mom.
Oh.
When mom says those horrific words, when she says, "Wait, can you rewind that?" No! You should have been paying attention, Mom. But backtracking, I've only found backtracking enjoyable or understandable in a handful of situations. And all of those situations are Kojima games. In the first Metal Gear Solid game, you notoriously have to backtrack at the later end of the game, because it's supposed to kind of test how well you know your way around the base, and if you may have picked up on a couple clever ways to backtrack there. And Death Stranding, also notoriously towards the very end of the game, you've made your way from one end of the country all the way to the other, and then it's like, hey, you don't have your BB, you don't have a way to fast travel. You have to walk all the way back. Have fun. But it's also really interesting because you can still utilize all of the ways that you got there and everything that you've built or that other people have built. So it's like a testament of like this long journey you've gone on. So it makes sense narratively. But no, when you're playing a Souls-like you said, you go like 2 hours into the game and you already come across a boss that you can't fight for shit.
Yeah.
And then you die 2 or 3 times trying, have no souls or runes or whatever. And then you're like, I guess I got to go back this way and get better and then come back. It's like, no.
I remember playing, perfect example, Lies of P.
Okay.
So, this was a point I was trying to make before, but I completely forgot to get to that point.
Oh.
I like the universe of Souls games and Souls-like games because they're always the coolest.
Right.
The art is the best.
Right.
Everything is cool. The bosses look sick.
Yeah.
Everything. But it's the gameplay.
Right.
It's infuriating. Like Lies of P, beautiful game. Sick design. Environment looks great. Graphics are amazing. Weapons are cool. Everything's cool. But you reach your first mini boss in the first 10 minutes of the game, and you already want to hate yourself. Sorry, you already hate yourself. You just want to kill yourself. And then you play like an hour into the game, and you encounter your first boss.
Right.
And the only way I was actually able to beat said boss was to wait till I died, backtrack far, rune farm as much as I possibly could and could tolerate without going nuts because I'm replaying the same thing over and over again and then resetting the area and then killing the same people again, hoping I don't die, and then go to the boss and then scrape by.
So then how do you feel about a version of Elden Ring where if you die, you start all the way from the beginning?
Get did. We're trying not to curse here.
Get bent.
Get bent. No, what I like, because I stated it years ago, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there's a game that played kind of like a Souls game, but technically wasn't a Souls-like? And then we got games like Black Myth Wukong. Still haven't played it. Really want to. The new game Hell Is Us.
I'm really excited for that game.
It looks cool. But see, that's what I'm talking about. The gameplay is enjoyable. The aesthetic, the design, all of it's there.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I would actually like the whole thing about Souls-like. I'm not even against how it plays.
No, right.
I'm not against like the rhythm-based combat
Yeah.
and like having to learn the moves of like your enemies and stuff. I get that.
Yeah.
And challenges I also get. What frustrates me is having like these little checkpoints that you get to, and if you die, you go back to it and you've lost everything.
And,
And all of the bad guys reset too. Or if you fast travel to that place or rest there, everything resets. Like that's just
not
annoying.
only do you lose everything, but you have to go back and get all of it. And then if you fail getting it all back,
Then it just goes away.
right,
Right.
which makes it worse. But here's the thing is games, especially now, I mean, actually they have been since the dawn of video games,
Mm-hmm.
they can be difficult even with difficulty settings. I remember playing Doom 2016 on easy and still dying a lot. That could be a testament on just like my skills, sure. But you can have a game that you play on a certain difficulty and still have a hard time. You don't need to make the game egregiously difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unnecessary.
Right.
So give us a Bloodborne or an Elden Ring or a Dark Souls,
With the cool lore and the cool aesthetics and
all
the
that
cool
stuff,
game. Yeah.
but maybe give you the option to have a game that's satisfying to play, not for the sake of beating this boss who is so difficult, but just having the satisfaction of exploring a world that's so freaking cool.
Mhm.
That's it.
Death to it all.
Death to it all.
Screw it.
I don't mind, like, if there's a new Souls-like game coming out,
What's
great.
with all these Souls likes?
I don't mind it every now and then if there's a new Souls-like, great. But one, every game being one, irritating.
Mm-hmm.
But give us more of just like that creativity, but something that plays like a Souls-like, but isn't a Souls-like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. 100%. And if people out there are like, how dare you, Souls-likes are the best games out there, you're fucking nuts. Sorry for the cursing.
Or just tell us about it. You angry? Are you angry?
Oh.
Are you mad? Get in comments.
Get in your comments below. So, my next one goes back to comic books. I promise you, they're not all comic book based. This is my last comic book based one. And this is a lot even for me to say because I like comic books. Comic book brands should rotate and phase out.
Comic book brands should rotate.
Well,
and phase out?
I didn't know how else to word that, but like comic
Are you
book.
saying like Marvel should die and something else should come in?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. First off, and this goes.
That's just an
Oh.
excuse so that you can get your comic books.
You're damn right. Okay, no. First off, and I'm not even just talking about mine.
Yeah,
So-
because if they're dead, who's the competition?
well, there's still plenty, but
Yeah, that's true.
okay. But here's the thing: Marvel and DC have been around for ever, and I'm not saying that like I'm not speaking ill about Marvel and DC, but it gets to a point with everyone, and it's another reason why I think Invincible did something right by like having a point A and a point Z kind of thing.
Okay.
Marvel and DC, I understand why they do it, but it gets to a point to where characters aren't changing, and you're trying to implement the next big thing, like as if you haven't done it already,
Right.
and try to make it new. Like it feels like every month or every year, Marvel or DC has the next end of the world thing.
Yeah.
But that's because they're trying to run on this high that they met years ago, or not high, but a standard that they met years ago, and they hope that they can meet it, but they're trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that, now they're focusing, oh, how do we get people's attention? Let's focus on controversy. Let's focus on all these weird decisions that aren't necessary, and it's just an excuse to like carry it out. Or they'll remake IPs that ended. Like they had Deceased, and then they had spin-offs and sequels to Deceased.
Mm-hmm.
But Deceased was supposed to be a one-time thing.
Right.
And there's another one that I was trying to think of. Oh, Hush! Hush was phenomenal. Like Batman Hush. And now they have Hush 2.
Yeah.
Because you're running out of ideas and want to do the same thing again?
I mean, hell, we just talked about how the Absolute Universe exists when they technically did it already.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Marvel's doing it. Like, I personally like the new Ultimate Universe more than the original Ultimate Universe for personal reasons. There's a lot to not like about the original Ultimate Universe.
That's true. But I really like the new Spider-Man.
Well, I do too.
But I think the original version of the Ultimates was a lot stronger.
That's true. But
and I also like the Punisher Captain America thing going on. That was cool.
But anyways, the point is that's still like the same thing too. Like, hey, we hit a certain degree of attention with the original Ultimate Universe, and that died off.
Mm-hmm.
What if we did it again?
Right.
Guys, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, and then characters like Batman or Peter Parker never changing. Like, they have things that mask the character that makes it feel like it's changing, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Peter Parker will always be having money issues and all this stuff, or he'll never be able to be happy. Like, he'll never have like a sustainable life,
Right.
because people thrive on Peter's suffering, which is jacked. And then Bruce Wayne, like, he's the same all the time. And then they'll throw in these things like, oh, Batman no longer has like millions of dollars. 3 issues later, he gets it back.
Right.
And nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So, and you could say that about all comic book characters, but that's the point. And that's where, like, Invincible, that's what they got right, is because characters grow up, characters change, they die, some come back, some don't.
I wonder if Invincible is even like proof of concept that you might be right that comic book stories and series and such live on through adaptation.
Yeah.
So like DC, like I'm excited for DC movies coming out,
Yeah.
but I haven't touched a DC comic book in a long time.
But that was another point I was going to make. Marvel is also, I mean, I wouldn't say thriving, but they were, for a while, they were thriving through movies. Like Marvel's, I think that some of the story behind it was that Marvel's comic book sales were kind of like going down. So they started making movies.
Right.
And it worked for a while. But that's the thing, is you could have easily started like drifting away from the comic books and like maybe even continued or made more stories through the movies.
Right.
Or like whatever, however you want to take it. In the end, they've just been around long enough. They've had their run, and they even use the excuse of having characters who come in and replace an existing character. And they try to throw in these things to make it seem like as if they're new, but it kind of ruins the character. Like Miles Morales is great. I think had a great start, but now it's like he gets a new costume every 6 months, and they're like, this is the new official Miles Morales outfit.
Which one of them ended up not actually being the official costume.
And it was cool because it was like, oh, this is new and it's different. Like, this isn't what Spider-Man usually has, and it's what separates Miles and Peter. But then they went straight back to the original, and then they gave him a new one, and then they went back to the original. Miles Morales has way too many abilities. At first, it was really cool because he had slightly different abilities to compensate for the lack of others. Like,
right.
Peter was stronger than Miles physically, so to compensate, he had invisibility. I think one of their spider senses or something was stronger than the other, or something like that, so he had the bioelectricity as like a self-defense. Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and they even explained that with the new Spider-Boy thing that they introduced. The kid who was like forgotten by the entire world. He doesn't have web shooters because Peter didn't believe that he needed them yet, at least in the time where they did know him. But he's extremely weak, extremely slow. His healing is terrible. But to compensate for all of it, his spider sense allows him to see into the future.
Interesting.
But that's what they were trying to do with Miles Morales in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, Miles has like laser webs, electric swords. He was a vampire temporarily, but they were trying to make that like official kind of. So they're just like, they're doing too much.
Yeah.
But you know what I would really like to see, and it's something that a lot of, especially our fans, probably wouldn't even know of. I would like to see more like mainstream comic books of variant comics. Like Exo Manowar. Or sorry, Valiant Comics.
Got it.
Sorry, the YouTube channel is Variant, and then comic book line is Valiant. Exo Manowar, Shadow Man, Ninjak. A lot of characters who people aren't familiar with, but who have actually really cool stories. But no one would ever know about them.
Who's Bloodsport a part of?
DC.
What?
Bloodsport?
Bloodsport.
Yeah. Idris Elba's character?
No, the Bloodshot.
Oh. Valiant Comics.
Okay.
A better adaptation of him for a movie, by the like, they would need a better one. Like, if they were to start like a cinematic universe, they would need a way better version.
I still haven't seen that movie.
Well, I did. And
right.
They have a lot of the right things in there. I was actually surprised on how specific they got with a lot of the detail. I'm like, wow, that's actually accurate.
Right.
But it was executed so Vin Diesel-y. And it was...
then you're reminded that Vin Diesel is the star of this movie.
Yeah, and then they did the whole thing where there's like a female companion who's supposed to be like not a love interest, but like she's always there, and she's played by the same female companion as every movie around that time, like in Morbius and whatnot, and the girl that they're aiming to play Wonder Woman and whatnot. Like she was every female companion for a while.
Yeah.
But anyways, but still, like, Valiant Comics getting a spotlight for a change, because I personally think they deserve a chance. Who else? There's some older Dynamite comic stuff that was cool. There's some Dark Horse has a lot of independent stuff. There's some Image comic characters who I think need to come back. Spawn, I love Spawn. He's my number one favorite comic book character of all time. But I think he needs a spotlight in readaptation. Kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah. I don't think his movie's on a good...
I don't think so either, but I think you mentioned this before. I love Todd McFarlane. But I think he should stay in a specific game. Toys, great. Comics, great.
I mean, he can obviously be like a correspondent.
He could be a part of the...
Yeah, like he can be a part of the writing team or something.
Right, but like when it comes to like directing, producing, writing...
He just shouldn't direct the movie.
Yeah, right.
He shouldn't be a creative lead.
Right.
Like, he should not be the one telling people what to do. He should not be the one getting with the director of photography and being like, "Ooh, I want this,"
think-
and then telling the writers and actors because I don't know.
I think he should just be there for the sake of like, hey, I understand why you want to make this change, but I personally don't think you should because it takes away from this part of the character. That's it.
And then a good director would be like, "All right, well then let's come to a compromise and
Right.
see like if we can do this by still executing this particular thing about the character that you want."
Right, like sending the same message but just adapting it
Right.
differently for the movie. Completely fine. But anyways, yes, I think they should kind of do what Invincible did. You could maybe stretch it out longer if you wanted to, like if you wanted to spend more time on a character or a universe. But do what Invincible did to make it to where things change. People change.
Right.
People die. And it's better storytelling that way because like in the Marvel and DC and everything, one of the biggest issues is like, well, can we really trust the idea of a character dying because they could just come back? Sure, every now and then it might be interesting, or if you had a character who died years ago and came back now, it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be done right, and it has to be done tastefully. It can't just be like, it's okay, they're allowed to die. They'll just come back. I mean, X-Men even has this whole thing now where every mutant on planet Earth is connected to a hive mind so that they can die as many times as they want and they'll be reborn instantly and remain all their abilities and stuff. But even that is kind of controversial because you have characters who aren't mutants, but they're connected to the hive mind. Who's to say you can't just connect every superhero on planet Earth? Hell, why not just connect every one on planet Earth to this hive mind so that no one can die? It's a little ridiculous. And yes, you know what? You're right. I would love for my comic book universe to be seen by the world. I would love for it to even get attention, even remotely close to freaking Valiant Comics. I think that a lot of my stuff may look familiar, but that's the point. It's supposed to have a lot of things that people like from older comics or even newer comics, but there's something a little bit different, and there's something a little bit weird with some of them. But the main thing is that things change. People change. People die. And eventually it will end. So, yeah. I think comic books should fade. I think they should rotate and eventually die off. That's not to say that I don't think comic books should stop being made. People just need to stop trying so hard to keep it going for as long as possible. But yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, I do think there's actually some merit to that because, like I said before, I think we're in a time where not only is IP is obviously the biggest selling point right now, especially for like movies.
Right.
But maybe that's just kind of where some like really long-lived comic books should go.
Yeah.
Is like adaptation. I love Batman and I love the idea of him in his comic book, but like I said, I don't remember when was the last time I bought a comic book. I have a rather large collection.
Yeah.
But it's just like sometimes there are people older than me that still collect comic books and it's a bigger deal to them. That's one thing. But how many of those comic books have those longtime collectors had that are identical to each other?
Yeah.
From different generations. Because two people from, 10 years apart from each other had this same idea.
I mean, hell, years ago, they were introducing the idea of completely stopping writing comic books pertaining Peter Parker. And they would just purely rely on Miles Morales being the one and only Spider-Man.
Yeah, because they even did end the Amazing Spider-Man at one point.
Yeah, it was with Spider-Man 300. or something like that.
700.
700. Something. Yeah. But it got to a point where they're like, hey, we're letting you guys know there will be no more Peter Parker. Like, he's run his course. It's coming to an end. I mentally prepared myself for it. It was sad, but it was like, you know what? Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's time for a new Spider-Man to just...
I mean, it wasn't so much that he was going to be done with, but he just wasn't going to get his own mainline comic book series anymore. Like, he was still going to be in, like, Avengers comics and stuff.
Yeah, he was going to make appearances.
And I think he even had his own... There was like a Spider-Man comic book that was more of like a cartoony Spider-Man comic book called, like, Spidey.
Yeah.
And it had, like, a really funky font, and Spider-Man had, like, it looked very cartoonish, more stylized comic book. But that was supposed to be more of, like, a kind of reminiscent of, like, the Ultimate Comics, where he was like a younger Spider-Man, and it was more like episodic.
It was supposed to be like tributes to his early days.
Yeah, and it was just supposed to be more of something that, like, if you wanted to read a new Spider-Man comic book, here's like a fun little Spider-Man thing. It wasn't as complex as like an Amazing Spider-Man type thing.
But everything that was going to be mainstream, it was supposed to be Miles Morales.
Right.
I was ready for that. And oddly enough, kind of disappointed when they scrapped it, ignored it, and then just continued making Spider-Man stories.
Especially so soon.
Yeah, because you know how many times since then there's been more hate and controversy to Spider-Man stories?
More particularly Peter Parker.
I mean, yes, still some with Miles Morales, but like there's been a lot of hate for writers who have been like making Peter's life purposely miserable for the sake of not changing him.
Right.
They did weird stuff with Mary Jane. They made Peter Parker say some questionable things, which was really disappointing. Mm-hmm. Because you've run Peter on so long to the point to where people aren't even sure if they like Peter Parker anymore. It's like, damn, dude, you're putting such a bad name on the OG. Mm-hmm. You could have avoided that by just not writing him at all. But what do I know? But yeah, I could rant on forever about that, but yeah, I could say this exact same thing about all mainstream Marvel and DC characters. So, yep. Do you have your next? Oh, you're all done?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Oh, well, I have one more.
Okay.
Oh, I have two more. Whoops. One I will make real quick.
Okay.
Well, I'll try to make these last two real quick. But my next one was going to be the Captain America Brave New World movie.
Yeah, we finally watched it.
Wasn't that bad.
I agree.
I liked it way more than I thought I was going to.
I liked the action a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Honestly, for me, it was just like there's a couple things that could have been tweaked visually. Maybe some things dialogue-wise here and there. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, like, I liked that movie. Like, that and Thunderbolts were, like, pretty high.
Thunderbolts was just good.
It was, but
that was a good movie.
I think Brave New World was, like, close to it for me.
Really?
Comparing to what we've been getting lately.
Okay, sure, true. Captain America Brave New World, it's very clear watching the movie that it went through tons and tons of rewrites and reshoots and stuff. There's a lot of inconsistencies in terms of quality. There's a lot of like really half-assed dialogue. There's a pretty solid plot behind the whole thing, but it's just executing it felt really lame and a little lackluster. But the biggest selling point, I'd say, is the action. More specifically, whenever Sam was flying.
Okay.
when he was like fighting against the Jets.
That was cool.
That was so sick. When he's like flying through DC to get away from the Red Hulk. Awesome.
So cool.
That was
That's
genuinely
what I was gonna bring up
really
too.
cool.
I genuinely enjoyed the Red Hulk.
The only part of the Red Hulk thing that was like really janky was the very beginning of the fight. Like, actually, sorry, the very beginning of the fight and the very end of the fight. Essentially, whenever Anthony Mackie, Sam Wilson, was, mask off or cowl off or helmet off and on a green screen, quote unquote, in front of the Red Hulk, like 1-to-1. Those always looked really bad because they were having a really hard time putting him, like having a normal guy with robotic wings fight against a CG monster.
Right.
Because there was even a part that I pointed out to you in the beginning of the fight where the whole Red Hulk, like, quote unquote, runs at him, but he kind of like hobbles over.
Yeah, it's like his
Sam.
feet are like digging through soft grass, and he's having like
But
almost
he's
like
but he's not moving that fast.
like someone's trying to run through snow, kind of thing.
Yeah, it just looked really weird.
Yeah,
and like his arms were really stiff.
but right after that, when they're on the roof,
Right,
and then everything,
and he's like, and the Red Hulk's like throwing stuff at the helicopter, and
when he's like jumping and doing all this Hulk stuff,
and he like grazes the Washington Monument.
beautiful.
That was all, and like good, like I said, like flying through like the city park or whatever.
It was all awesome.
That was like really cool.
There was one part that I was like genuinely like, if I was in this or like just looking at it from someone's point of view is kind of terrifying. But when he's holding Sam Wilson's head by the helmet and you see Sam Wilson's point of view and he's looking through the visor, like at Sam Wilson, I was like, that's kind of terrifying, dude.
Yeah.
But
And what's funny though is that this movie did really emphasize the fact that it's a sequel to the Incredible Hulk movie.
yeah, they did.
Like they really leaned in, which isn't bad.
Right.
At some points they really did have to kind of retread that movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially in the very beginning, there's like a press conference with the president, and they practically one for one say what happened in the first movie.
Right.
And where Thunderbolt Ross comes from, and like, why he's relevant in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially, oh my god, I keep wanting to call him the Thinker. He's the
Oh, he's the mastermind.
Is that what he's called?
Or am I thinking of Doom?
I don't think he's called a mastermind. I thought he was called like the leader or something.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I am thinking of Doom.
Okay,
Sorry,
but
I'm obsessed with Doom.
that's what he's called, right? The leader?
Yeah.
First off, I think it was a really smart move that marketing-wise, before the movie came out, there were posters of him, but he had like the classic really tall green head. I don't know if you ever saw pictures of it.
No, I didn't.
But there was like character posters, and whenever you saw his character poster, he kind of looked like how he does in the comics. He had like the really giant dome with like the black hair at the top.
Yeah.
And like just clean green skin. But in the movie, he's like, his like brain's grown out of his head.
Yeah.
Like, and he's got like these glowing green, like reflective eyes. Like,
One's a blind eye, but it's got green coming out of it.
Right.
And one's a normal
like
eye.
it looks cool. Like
Yeah.
what a guy would look like if he had this weird, scientific experiment gone wrong with the gamma radiation kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good choices, bad execution. Oh, one more thing about that movie. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm sorry. The little girl. The secret agent that was like that looked.
She's an ex-widow.
Was that serious or was that a joke?
No, they said she was from, I think they said she was from the Red Room.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm sorry,
I
like-
think she's a good actress. I've seen her in other stuff.
but that was just weird.
It was.
I think there was a lot of, honestly, I think even though it probably would have been a little bit more corny,
Yeah.
I think a better way to do that without casting a girl that's like supposed to be in your face, gorgeous, sexy kind of thing, like Black Widow, is doing the more traditional, like they got a more muscular, masculine woman who is like believable to be a part of that program.
Yeah.
I don't know, because when she took on like a whole, like she had like her own segment of like a hallway fight scene. I'm sorry, she was like 3 feet tall.
I think it's purely just like there's a lot of times when people in the Marvel world they want a specific actor or actress in a movie, and they just try to find a way to put them in there, and they're like, I think this is the best way to have this person in the movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a good idea, I think she could have been somewhere in the Marvel universe, whether it's like as an agent or something, or like informative, but like as an ex-widow and like trying to do all these like Scarlett Johansson style stuff. No.
And also, yeah, I don't know. So I would even argue that some of those fight scenes were a little clunky.
I think that a lot of it, especially with like Captain America and Falcon, I think a lot of it would have been completely fine if there was just no slow motion.
Yeah.
There's a scene that me and you talked about where he does this cool kick thing with the shield, and he actually like kicks the shield.
But he like goes in slow motion while he's in
that
midair.
scene would have been great, 100 times better if they just took away the slow motion.
Yeah, because
Just
like
him doing like a quick like kick or like jump in the air, kick the shield, and it just bounces back to
yeah,
him.
I feel like it would have made the shield hitting the guy like
more impactful.
Yeah, like land harder.
Yeah, because it goes slow motion and then it picks up, hits the guy, and then goes slow motion back.
But
to
it
him.
should have just been like a rhythm, like they're fighting. Falcon gets like pinned down, and then Captain America throws up the shield, and it's like bing bang boom, he's down.
Yeah.
I agree. I think all of the only slow motion part that made a lick of sense, but still would have been better without it, was when when his wing cuts the wing of the jet.
Right, but like I explained to you, kind of like the scene in the first Iron Man movie where he breaks and hits the wing of the jet. If they did the exact same thing and made it to where it was from a camera view of the jet wing, and he flies by really fast and just slices it, and you just see the wing detach from.
Yeah, it would feel more. It'd kind of have like a Top Gun feel to it, where it's like all perspective of like in air flight type thing, but it also emphasize like how fast everyone's moving.
Exactly.
Especially Sam. Sam was flying in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, emphasis on flying. He was moving. Oh, I pointed this out too when we watched it. Because you actually walked in like 2 minutes after the movie started.
Yeah.
But the very beginning of the movie is him. It's the scene in the trailer where he still has the white suit.
Yeah.
And in the trailer where he has like the superhero landing.
Yeah.
How he gets there, they're like talking to him on the comms and he's flying super fast. He dives. Falcon dives, by the way. Straight down at like
Falcon or Captain America? In this movie, he is Captain America.
He's Captain America, but I mean Falcon dive because it's like a nod to a Falcon.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Oh, I get it. He Falcon dives.
Yeah, he
Got
Falcon
it.
dives.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Which at like Mach 6.
Yeah.
Like, in the Man of Steel movies when he takes off and he goes like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
He's doing that down. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't slow down and he lands. Superhero lands.
So I did
like the fog clears, they look up and he's just like,
I saw that clip like on TikTok after we watched it, And I mean, I figured that was the case with the trailer, because even in the trailer, when they show him doing a superhero landing, it's extremely quick and he like kind of just like pops onto the ground.
Right.
That would not happen. Again, superhero movies do whatever. Great. He is a human man who they even emphasize throughout the whole movie and a show, by the way, which this is connected to.
Right.
That Sam Wilson will not take the super soldier serum because he feels like he's a better person without taking it or something like that. A man who's flying at Mach butt pole straight down
Right.
would die.
Yeah, he'd be dead.
He would be just as dead as the people he took out in that scene.
Also, there was a scene in that same sequence where he's fighting like this dude who's bigger than him.
Yeah.
And you know that somewhere in the writing, they probably wrote I can do this all day, but they scrapped it because he's talking to the guy while he's fighting him.
Yeah.
And the guy's constantly like, he's like, oh, what are you going to do, pipsqueak kind of thing, you know? And there's even a point where he like throws Sam down.
Yeah.
Which I can kind of understand the whole point of the super soldier serum conversation because like he kind of falls and he's like, oh,
yeah, he broke a rib in that scene.
Right. But then he kind of gets back up and he almost has like I can do this all day. But it really feels like because of how stale the conversation gets that they might have written that out or reshot it.
There's a way they could have done that scene where the fight felt a lot more impactful and a little more realistic. Like the blows actually hit. And it would have been cool if, to emphasize the fact that this is a Captain America who is not a super soldier, if he does get his ass handed to him and he like kind of like stumbles up and he's like, I can do this all day.
Right.
But I would also not like that because I think, and I don't care how many times they do it because they did it a million times with Steve Rogers. I think Sam Wilson should never say, I can do this all day. I think he should always say, to your left. If they found a way to implement that whenever, because they've been doing it since the time he was introduced, and they even did it in Endgame, they should make it to where at least once in every movie as rather Falcon or Captain America, he has something that's like on your left. And then, or he doesn't even have to say it, but someone says it, and it's just a nod to show like, okay, I know what movie I'm watching. Just like how when you hear, I can do this all day, I'm watching a Captain America movie with Steve Rogers. When you hear on your left, I'm watching a Captain America movie with Sam Wilson.
Okay, and last point about this movie is that there's a scene where they kind of have this conversation about the whole super soldier serum thing. It's him and Bucky. And Bucky's saying, like, that's exactly why he chose you. Blah, 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 blah. I get the message. I understand that it's, like, willpower over, like, physical strength. Ugh. Bucky should have been Captain America.
Bucky should have been Captain America.
Bucky in the movies, like, he's like, no, it should have been you. And, yeah, no. But, Bucky, you? Dude? You should have been Captain America.
You know what?
I think it would have been a more interesting thing, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think it's a more powerful character development thing of Bucky trying to prove himself to society, who still doubts him in a way, by being Captain America. Not the whole like kid from, the ghetto or the suburbs growing up to be Captain America and proving that he can be Captain America without the super soldier serum. It should be a super soldier who has the capability to like F people up
right
in all the wrong ways and has done it in all the wrong ways throughout history as the Winter Soldier and even took on Captain America. But it's his opportunity to prove to himself and the world that he can protect this place for the sake of his best friend.
Yeah.
By being Captain America.
Like, basically going from, like, going from a good soldier to a good man,
Right.
kind of thing. And they easily could have just reworked it a little bit, and Steve or someone saying like, "Well, you got it wrong." Steve never said that you're only a good soldier. You are a good man. You just had to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had to give you that chance. So Steve gave you that chance because no one else would.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that people are like, "Oh, well, it's not like as much of a change between like Steve and Bucky."
I'd argue it would be.
It would.
Because I think it'd be interesting if Bucky like maybe didn't want to be Captain America. But he's like forcing, because you know how like emotionally attached to the shield he was in the show.
Yeah.
Like it would make sense that like he maybe doesn't want to be Captain America, and he's even considering, similar to Sam in the movie, he's even considering potentially giving the shield to Sam, but he knows like if he gives it away, or if the shield gets into the hands of the government or whatever, that he's letting Steve down, and he wouldn't be able to finish the fight that Steve started, or that Steve was trying so hard to fight.
I think it's just a victim of Marvel wanted to do their best to introduce things that are in current Marvel comics, and not really like backtrack into how it got to where it is in the comics.
Right.
Because before Falcon became Captain America,
Bucky
became Captain America.
Yeah.
After the events of Civil War and Steve Rogers got shot and was supposedly dead for years, who did he send the letter to? Who did the letter say, "I think you," like, basically, "I'm giving the shield to you because I know who you were and I respect that, but I know who you can be and I respect that man even more." You, Bucky. And then we got a very iconic Captain America outfit, and we got a whole run of Bucky basically going through what we just talked about. It happened. Everyone questioning like, "Oh, should Bucky even be Captain America because he was an assassin?" Well, this is all just proof that people can't accept change, because Bucky is proof that people can change. And they could have done that in the movie, but no. They just wanted to be like, "Oh, well, Falcon is the Captain America in current comic books. We should probably like speed up the process."
That's kind of similar with with the Venom movies. Like the Venom movies try to fast track to a lot of stuff that just happened in the comic books, when they skipped over a lot of the substance of Venom comic books and Venom stories.
Yep.
All the way in between his conception and now.
Same thing goes for like them talking about having Miles Morales in the MCU right now with Tom Holland, but that still shouldn't work because Tom Holland he does go through a lot between the time when he started as Spider-Man and now, but there's still so much that he has to experience before he can become a mentor to another kid. And there is supposed to be an age gap.
Yeah.
For numerous reasons.
Yeah, and even if some time has gone by since No Way Home just proved that like Tom Holland's Spider-Man's not like the strongest willed Spider-Man.
Right.
And he's not even like the quote unquote like just strongest in general, because like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was supposed to be proof that like you have to stop and you have to like rethink some of these things.
Right.
Before jumping the gun, because that's how he got here. And if you have a Spider-Man who's like, yeah, maybe it's been a little easier for him because no one knows who he is anymore.
Right.
And he's been able to take things slow. I'm assuming the whole point of the next movie will be like, well, what happens when all of that gets thrown back at you again? How are you going to handle that?
Yeah.
You don't want that person, like you said, being a mentor. At least not yet.
Not only that, but like, you could argue like, oh, it'd be an interesting story because he hasn't experienced a lot, but now he's under this pressure of having to mentor someone who he's not ready to mentor. But if that's the case, make the stakes a little higher, and don't like hire a 21-year-old to play a 15-year-old. Hire a 15-year-old to play a 15-year-old, and then have Tom Holland, Spider-Man, who is like an adult Spider-Man now, finally.
Yeah, play like a Spider-Man that's his age.
Yeah, and then he can mentor an actual kid.
Right.
And he's even like fighting a battle in his head. Like, should I even consider this at the fact that he's a kid? But I was a kid when I started, and look at me now.
I mean,
but I wish I knew not to do the things that I did. Maybe I could just prevent him from doing those things. So then he goes back and forth like, I could teach him not to do those things and be a better Spider-Man, or I could just prevent him from being Spider-Man at all.
Right.
And just not teach him.
Yeah, because I'd even be okay with something similar to like the Insomniac games where Miles Morales might be like just graduating high school.
Yeah.
And again, like you pointed out, Tom Holland being the age that he is, if he's playing a Spider-Man that's that age, that'd be a perfect time for like a Miles that's not only transitioning into adulthood, which is already a big thing on its own,
right?
But he's transitioning into possibly being a superhero.
Yeah.
Or wanting to be a superhero, and Peter being like, I think you need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
But imagine like a kid who has like all this power and everything, like just like Tom did, or this version of like Spider-Man did when he was 14 or 15, and being like they would really have to emphasize the fact that this kid Spider-Man has no idea what he's doing by making way too many mistakes. People might be like, oh, well, now he's just a burden. Good. The whole point is that Miles Morales is supposed to think that he's got this handled just because he's a superhero, but you actually have to learn how to be a superhero. You have to learn how to balance your life. You have to learn how to like pick and choose when to like pull your punches and when not to pull your punches and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Who can teach you that? The guy who's done it already. Like, there is a way to do it, but you would really have to exaggerate those things. Like, one, exaggerate the fact he is a kid. Hire a kid. Not a 21-year-old, a kid. Two, make him obnoxious, make him arrogant, and way too self-confident. And then make him make mistakes left and right all the time. And have Peter pick up the slack, because it gives Peter another thing like, should this even be worth teaching him? He's making too many mistakes. But there again, I made mistakes. And although it's not accurate, Stark was there for me when I made mistakes. Yeah. So it's, sure, it could work, but it shouldn't. And same thing goes back to Captain America. We kind of went on a rant about that one, because I do have one more. But this one I'll get through really quick. Okay. I said that about the last one, but you had way more to say than I thought you would. This is for the anime fans.
Oh, no.
This one I don't think is that bad, but they can disagree all they want. Bad attention, still attention. Animes should only be movies or limited series. Because I think a lot of animes have good premise, interesting stories, all the above.
But they run on for too long.
Way too long. And their compromise to that, or like their way to fix the problem, is by having filler episodes, moments that are dragged out way too long. Sure, you could push that off to the excuse of that's just how they write stories. That's not true. I've seen animes not written by Americans or any other race or ethnicity other than Japan that have good pacing, no filler moments, no filler episodes, and just one consistent story that's paced properly, and it works beautifully. If it's a movie or if it's a trilogy, great. You can have it go on for quite a while, put as much detail as you want into 1 or 3 movies, each one being roughly somewhere between an hour and a half to maybe even 3 hours. Great. Or if it's a limited series, making it 1 or 2 seasons, awesome. there are some animes that I think should have gotten at least 1 or 2 more seasons, like Zetman. I always talk about how much I love Zetman.
Mm-hmm.
Great pacing, great writing, no fillers, no unnecessary conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. Unfortunately, it did get canceled after the first season. I think it should have gotten a second season, but I don't think it should have gone on for 50 seasons.
Right.
So that's basically it. Like One Piece, first off, overrated. Just saying. Went on way too long. Like the fact that they have to make a version of the show that's like cut down so that you're only witnessing important parts.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you had to do that is dumb. You should have just made a show to where you don't have to worry about that issue. And I could say the same about other animes that have gone on for way too long. I love Dragon Ball Z. Went on for way too long.
Mm-hmm. I mainly agree with you. With the exception, because I even think that should be the case for any kind of show, regardless of it just being anime. Like there's some shows that they just go on too long.
Yeah.
Where they should have. And there are even there's a different type of exception where there's shows that were designed to be a limited series, but they just do so well.
Yeah.
And the creators have a little bit more in them to do like another season.
Right.
Which sometimes pans out really well. But in general, shows just should be limited to a certain framework. But the biggest exception that I think to argue the rule is if the series is designed to be episodic. Like The Simpsons has gone on for a really long time. And there was even a period of time where people thought The Simpsons wasn't funny anymore.
Yeah.
I've heard that apparently recent Simpsons is actually really funny again. But Simpsons is just designed to like be something you put on and you chuckle to.
Yeah.
You know? It's designed to just
it's not like
purely just to entertain. And there are some subplots and stuff that do carry over or have multi-parts and stuff.
Right.
But again, that's purely just because it's like they have this interesting little narrative that they're like, oh, we can push this a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's nothing more than that.
Right.
But again, to agree with you and to like validate your point, if you do have a more structured narrative or something where you're really trying to drive home like a particular emotion or theme or something, it should be constricted to a particular like framework.
I guess why I pointed out animes specifically is because like when it comes to like, for example, like Western kid cartoons, like when you have SpongeBob or Amazing World of Gumball or Chowder or whatever,
Yeah.
those are designed to where it's like we can just like as long as we can spitball goofy ideas, it doesn't really matter if it goes on long or short.
Yeah.
Because we could just kind of keep going and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have any kind of effect.
Right.
But like you're saying, like when it comes to structured stuff, it's more common, like in animes, to have the same reoccurring issues. Filler episodes, filler seasons. Because they're trying their best to milk out every inch of a story as they can. You know what was a beautiful story? It unfortunately didn't have a proper ending. Berserk. It has as much praise for a reason. It's well written, beautiful world, beautiful storytelling. I watched the original version of the anime. It was really good. There's some episodes you can consider filler because they're just slower or not a lot happens, but it's more of like in the conversation, what they're talking about has an effect later on.
Yeah.
So that's important. And I don't think Berserk was designed ever or intended to go on for like 50 years. And although it ended too soon, it eventually was going to end. And they had that in mind and great.
Right.
But like then you have shows like Attack on Titan. I liked Attack on Titan, but there's way too much filler. and it pulled me out of it. Same thing goes with My Hero Academia. There was a lot of fun things and there was cool fights. Way too much filler. Pulled me out of it. So yeah, aim it towards more anime only because I feel like they do it more.
Yeah.
So, and then when you have like Americanized anime or, just animes made by other people who recognize those issues, so they do what they can to avoid those, they're all limited. You have like the limited Castlevania, which is 4 seasons, and then you have the sequel show, which is still going to be, actually it is, it's only 2 seasons, because they just ended the second one, and there's no way it's going to continue. They could make another Castlevania, but it won't be the same show. But yeah, He-Man went on way too long.
I wouldn't say He-Man went on too long. I would just say...
I'm saying the American anime one.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it went on too long. I think the biggest issue with it is just it wasn't that good.
Yeah. But either way, it's designed to where it's like, okay, we have it planned out from point A to point B. We just need to make sure that it's all one consistent pace, and we don't have to run into issues of like filler stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of Japanese like traditional animes where they don't think about it ending because they want it to go on for as long as possible.
Can I ramble about something really quick? You brought up He-Man. So
I think I know what you're about to bring up.
So there's the new live action movie being made, which, by the way, I'm not on board with a lot of the casting so far.
Me neither.
Especially He-Man.
Absolutely not. I don't know.
But something that annoys me about the way that they're going about it, actually, I don't know how they're going about it, but what I'm assuming is going to end up happening is, I mean, even the original animated series has the same problem, but okay, wait, let me backtrack. So what's his name? Prince Adam?
I think so, yeah.
When he's not He-Man, he's supposed to be like a prince,
right?
Like a boy,
yeah,
not like a kid, but small. I mean, even the original animated series had the problem because, like, even when he was a prince and he was in his clothes, he was still muscular, and he kind of just went nude to be He-Man. Like, that was the only difference, really.
Yeah,
like he got into bondage is the biggest difference, but. The new movie, are they gonna like go back and forth like a Captain America situation where he constantly gets big and small, or is he just gonna be like a guy who grabs a sword, says an oath, and then like
his clothes change?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something I didn't think about. What I'm irritated at is the fact that they went down, I don't know what excuse they're going to use, but implementing modern day society into it. I thought that's where you're going to lean on when you say he's a prince, because if you've seen behind the scene footage, he's walking around in like a city and he's wearing like a pink collared shirt and jeans.
Right.
When has He-Man ever been in 21st century like modern society?
Okay, that trend though that you're talking about, that used to be really prevalent in like 90s and sometimes early 2000s stuff. That's what I was trying to explain to you how I felt the new Devil May Cry show was. That's the feeling I got. Like that theme, that form of adaptation. That's what it felt like the new Devil May Cry was. Like, it felt too much like they were trying to put the Devil May Cry stuff into, like, everyday life.
That's very different.
It is different, but I'm just saying, like, when I was trying to explain to you what I thought or how I was feeling about Devil May Cry, that's what I was trying to explain to you.
Well, because they have, like, a modern day...
I know, but
world. I do agree. It could have been a little bit more interesting if they made it to where the new anime took place in like early 2000s, maybe.
There just needed to be more of like an aesthetic difference with that
Yeah,
show.
but it's still. But my biggest issue is it's not like different versions of modern day or like aesthetic for modern day. This is a story that's not supposed to take place.
This is like how Barbie leaves her world to come to our
right. It's
world.
just an
It's He-Man.
excuse to like, oh, we won't put in as much of a budget.
Right.
We're going to have this all take place, and we want it to be a superhero movie. So it's going to be like a super powered human in like modern society.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not nowhere remotely close to what he like. Yes, he is supposed to be like a superhero in like a medieval sci-fi aesthetic world,
Right.
but it's supposed to be its own world away from us and a galaxy far, far away.
Like you know how I would pitch a He-Man movie is like if someone wanted like an elevator pitch, how I would pitch a He-Man movie is think of Flash Gordon aesthetically, but told like a Beowulf movie.
You lost me at the Flash Gordon part.
Well, I just mean in the sense of that, like, it needs to have, like, a sci-fi flary aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I think with He-Man, kind of like Flash Gordon, if you were to do a Flash Gordon, you have to kind of lean into the 80s a little bit with some of, like, character designs and stuff like that. I don't think you need to futurize it in any way, and I don't think you need to, like, come up with something new. I just think you need to, like, you have to lean into something. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to, like, pitch it to a modern audience, I wouldn't make it campy. I wouldn't make it, like, I would make it the far end of PG-13. So, like, it's still approachable for a wider audience.
Yeah.
But it leans closer to the more mature part of PG-13. That's why I was saying Beowulf, because it's still like a man versus all.
So I agree with you on that part, the whole Beowulf and like pushing PG-13
Right.
type. But when it comes to the other half of what you said, I believe it should be try something new as far as aesthetic. Take away the 80s Flash Gordon thing, because despite the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy is a thing, a fun, family friendly but still epic Flash Gordon thing could still be done, in my opinion. So doing that with a He-Man movie takes away that opportunity again. I think take the idea of futuristic medieval stuff like Doom, the Dark Ages. Take away the dark gothic,
like the metal part of it.
Yeah. Add in a hint of like neon. Like, when I say neon, I mean like.
Don't say cyberpunk.
When I say cyberpunk, I don't mean like the technology. I purely just mean like dark metals but bright lights type thing. But really like hone in on the fact that this is all like future technology, but in the form of like medieval era.
See, but in a way, you're kind of just circling back to the same, like, lean into, like, what the 80s was trying to accomplish a little bit.
I just feel that if you go to 80s, then it's going to feel too much like Flash Gordon and not enough like He-Man.
No, I'm not saying, like, make it look like Flash Gordon. I'm just purely saying that, like, He-Man's one of those IPs that, you don't have to pull all of the present day tropes into the movie making process.
Yeah.
Like if I made a Flash Gordon movie, I wouldn't make it super modern.
Right.
I would kind of go to things like Guardians of the Galaxy for reference, cuz you want kind of like
it's supposed to be.
You want like some flavor to it.
Yeah.
So I would again, like I guess kind of like what you're saying, I would try to do something new with it, but I would lean into the inspiration heavily. You know, like I would bring, if there was anything that I could pull from the 80s version, like even what's his name, Emperor Ming,
Yeah.
like something with like a big collar and like the big if there was any way to pull that off somehow,
Time Lord.
I would do that, you know?
Yeah.
Or if there was any way for him to like ride a flying scooter and just make it a little fun, I'd do it.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying with like the He-Man thing. Like if there's any part of that like source of inspiration, like even color palettes, I'd still lean into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't totally Zack Snyder it where everything would be like gray tones and stuff.
I wouldn't.
Because then you lean too far into something like Beowulf.
Right. But there is potential. There is so many ways with He-Man where you could aim on either side and still have something successful.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that they're doing wrong with this one, the whole modernization thing,
Right.
the casting choice. I don't care about that actor.
I
I
don't
don't
either.
think he's a good actor at all.
I definitely don't think he was the right choice.
And I don't think he looks like He-Man. And the fact that he even has bleached hair for the movie makes him look even dumber.
Sure, he got really muscular, but he's not at the
I-
physique that I think of He-Man.
I think when I think of He-Man, because like okay, this is the thing that I think the new American anime He-Man got right.
Mm-hmm.
He-Man should be like I kind of think of him like the Doomslayer.
No. That's too much.
But that's how he's always been.
The Doomslayer's too square. You need more of a triangle. Like,
I just mean more, okay, fine, like a barbarian.
okay, so you were kind of going where, so not young Arnold exactly, but more specifically in Secret Level,
Yeah.
the episode that Arnold was in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what game that was.
I don't know.
But that physique that his digital young Arnold self had in that's He-Man.
Yeah.
Because he still looks like Arnold, like that wide shoulders and triangular body, but he's really tall.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the muscle fills into that kind of structure.
Right.
That should be He-Man. He should be like overwhelmingly tall.
I
He
think-
should be and then a really wide bodybuilder
I
size.
think why I said what I said like about like his exaggerated muscle
Mhm.
is because kind of like what I was saying about Wonder Woman before. When you read on paper what He-Man is physically capable of doing,
Yeah.
which is like Superman level stuff, you want someone who looks like they could do that.
Yeah.
So when I look at the new guy who they casted, I don't see him doing like Zack Snyder style fight stuff,
Mhm.
you know? Like at all. I just
don't even know how seriously I'll take him.
No, I don't think I will. I think the whole time I'll be laughing at how dorky he looks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
It's
Like some people, there might be someone that's a fan of him that might argue like, oh well, maybe it'll be like a Robert Pattinson thing where. But the thing is that Robert Pattinson is a good actor, but he just happened to be in a bad movie.
yeah.
This is the other way around, where it's like this could potentially be an all right movie, but the actor's just not a great choice.
Yeah, the actor just sucks.
He's never been in anything that I thought was good.
Yeah.
Nothing that I thought he was good in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be this character that a lot of people from a lot of different generations at this point will recognize and will be fond
I never
of.
even thought about that. I want someone who I can take our dad to go see the movie and be like, hey, this is a He-Man movie.
Mhm.
And our dad be like, that guy looks bad.
Yeah.
Because like our dad, he would always explain.
That's
the
how
Hulk.
he used it. Yeah.
He would always be like, the Hulk is bad.
Yeah, he's bad.
I want him to look at He-Man and be like, that guy's bad.
Yeah.
Or like the same way he looked at Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
If Dad saw this new He-Man, he'd be like, I'm not going to use the word Dad would use, but it would be hilarious.
You know what I think they were going for? I think it's because He-Man's supposed to be kind of pretty.
If that's what you consider pretty,
But like for as masculine and as big as he is, because like Prince Adam is supposed to be like an elegant prince.
yeah,
So I think that's what they were going for. They were trying to find a face, like an actor, especially at its time when he was casted. He was more relevant. They were trying to be like, oh, who's like a pretty boy right now?
right.
Which there's tons of them.
Tons.
So
Many people.
And the thing
you could
is-
just be like, hey, work out a lot.
And we're also in a point right now, at least this is personal experience from people that I've talked to. Right now, what like the attractive guy in media right now is on very two different ends of the spectrum. It's rather one, they're more grizzled and aged, and they've got some kind of like roughness to them, or they're like a lot younger and they're still at like the pretty boy, but they're still a lot younger is the emphasis on that part.
you just, yeah.
But anything in between, like this guy who's like, he's been in a couple like romantic movies, but he's a little older, so he's like late 20s. It's like he's not it.
You just brought up another thought. I think out of a He-Man movie, I would prefer a movie that's not an origin story.
True.
I don't want a He-Man where he's like learning how to be He-Man. I want a scene where like the first shot is like a battlefield and he's riding in on his tiger and he's been He-Man for a long time.
I would have
That-
even been okay
That would have been cool.
to kind of go back to the beginning of this conversation.
yeah.
I even would have been okay if they tried to attempt like a Shazam-esque thing where two different actors played He-Man. I think if there's a really talented director who has like a vision to exit, I don't think I could do it, but I think there's a director out there somewhere who would be clever enough to like look at two different actors, even like do like an actor that's like early 20s and say that he's like just the prince, and then find like a guy who's not crazy older, like maybe mid 20s or late 20s, that's already worked on his physique and he's worked on his look and stuff, and someone who just looks similar enough to where it's like when this guy, because sometimes when people get muscle, they do look different.
Yeah.
Like size can make you look different. So like someone who's just believable enough that like, oh, he looks like this when he's this much taller and he's this much bigger and stuff, you know?
yeah.
And maybe just lean away from like the Shazam type writing where they make him act childish, because He-Man's never been like that.
Right.
So then it's more believable when he's not acting childish. Like maybe the younger actor acts more distinguished and like matured and stuff, so that when he turns into He-Man, you're like, okay, well, that's him.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys did it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of problems with some decisions, as always. It's going to be that way.
It's just a lot of power going to the wrong people.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we want a He-Man movie. Let's put our hand in a hat filled with names and pull out the first director or writer we see. And they're like, hey, this person has made a movie.
Yeah. But it's like it's the whole thing with Spawn too. It's like, yeah, Todd McFarlane approached Jason Blum and was like, hey, this is the idea for a Spawn movie. You know, Jamie Foxx as Spawn at the time, Jeremy Renner as Twitch, this and this and this. And Jason's like, yeah, cool. And then the movie's signed and they haven't found a director. So Todd's like, I'm going to direct this movie.
You know what
and then they're too deep into it to fix it.
You know what I think should have happened? I think they should have just not said anything about a Spawn movie until they were like 3/4 of the way done with it.
Or until they started filming. The movie's not even being filmed right now.
I wouldn't even say that, because there's even been times when movies are like start filming and then it's like, oh yeah, we filmed a few scenes, but like things aren't working out.
But at least we could at least know that something was happening.
True, but like I would much rather I want something solidified. I want something to be like, hey, guess what? For the past a year and a half, we've actually been filming Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's done filming. All we have to do is just work on visual effects and audio and everything. And people would be like, oh my gosh, we're actually getting a Spawn movie because it's almost done.
I don't know.
We kind of went off topic. But
I mean, hell, maybe I pissed a couple people off with my He-Man conversation, but
I really don't think you did.
I'm sure that's...
I'm not even sure who knows about the He-Man movie.
I don't know.
But I hope we were controversial enough to start this conversation. I hope we made some
We were here to piss you off.
I hope I made your blood boil just a little bit. Or maybe I reawoken something deep down that's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I agree with this. But let us know in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give us a rating on Spotify. Word of mouth is a great way to help. And remember, we're on YouTube, Spotify. That's it. We're on nothing else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've been your host, Brandon.
And I have been Aaron.